Parasite is sweeping the awards, selling out cinemas around the world, and it's finally landed in the UK. It follows the Kims, a down-on-their-luck Korean family struggling to pay the rent on their semi-basement flat while working part-time jobs. All that changes when son Ki-woo is offered a job by an old friend. Go and teach English to the daughter of a rich family, the Parks. One by one, the Kims lie and manipulate their way into an array of jobs in the Park household, operating under assumed identities that are unrelated to each other.
제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
This comedy plot, with its heady mix of farce and social realism, is already a great setup for a movie, but all is not what it seems in the Park house, and the film takes a very unexpected turn. To say more would spoil the surprise, so I'll get into spoilers later in the film with a very clear warning. But for now, let's talk about the movie in a spoiler-free way. Parasite is the latest film from director Bong Joon-ho, whose previous films Snowpiercer, Okja, The Host, Mother and Memories of Murder have all offered very interesting subversions of genre elements while also focusing on social commentary in a big way. If you're interested in finding out more about his work, check out my beginner's guide on Little White Lies, linked in the description and in a card right here. Bong has got a bit of a reputation for showy films with a weird central premise. Parasite mostly bucks that trend by remaining relatively grounded, and in that sense is much more like Memories of Murder than the worldwide super pig antics of Okja, for instance. But the rich character writing present across all his films is very much on display here, with the relatively limited cast carefully brought to life. The Kims, for instance, all have distinct speech patterns and ways of coping with their difficult situation, and the Parks likewise have interesting separate personalities. Here's where the all-star Korean cast is on great form. It's impossible to pick out a single actor that does better than another. It's a real team effort. And importantly, I think their chemistry is also believable, and it lends additional depth to the film's interactions. You can see that in the differing interactions between Ki-taek and Chung-suk, the parents in the Kim family, and Dong-ik and Yeon-kyo, the parents in the Park family. The Kims fight a lot, but they have an easy rapport that shows the importance of their struggles together. The Parks, in contrast, barely share screen time, and what time they have together is stilted, difficult, performative. All that wonderful acting stuff means that the characters avoid becoming caricatures, which is really important when you're dealing with sensitive and difficult political themes as the film does. At its heart, it's about how working poverty can brutalize people. It's portrayed as killing the ability to plan long term, shutting off empathy, making people desperate. The wealthy characters, in contrast, are naive, fake, and they're kind of harsh. They screw over lives on a whim with little provocation. But the film's depth of characterization means that it doesn't feel didactic, and interactions between the two families develop in surprising ways. None of this would be as interesting without the wonderful craft of the film. Both the Park and Kim family homes are amazingly fully built on sound stages, with seamless digital work completing the backgrounds. I wouldn't have known about that if I hadn't been told. It's really a triumph of production design and visual effects. It's helped by the masterful cinematography, which, as is typical for a Bong Joon-ho directed film, jumps about with plenty of long tracking and overhead shots. The quality of light in the film is interesting too. It's really naturalistic, and again, it's a game of contrasts really between the dingy Kim home and the ultra-modern, light and airy Park home. Above all, the edit really stood out to me. There's a number of clever montages in the film that work marvels with displaying the at times complicated plottings of the Kim family, and simultaneously it provides great laughs at the expense of the Parks. But importantly, the film's as comfortable with its comedic moments as it is with the more surprising stuff that goes on later on, and that's very much to do with the edit. The last thing I can say, spoiler-free, is that you should go watch Parasite, preferably in the cinema if you can, hopefully with mates, family, loved ones, or a general audience. The movie completely captured the sold-out screening I was in with plenty of laughs and gasps, and it's well worth the price of admission. After that, track down some other Bong Joon-ho stuff. I'm very partial to The Host. Now, spoilers will commence in 3, 2, 1. Cool. Welcome to spoiler territory. Once the Kims are well ensconced in the life of the Parks, they make a terrifying discovery. The former housekeeper, who they ousted, has been hiding her husband in a secret sub-basement for years. He's sort of mad, driven by isolation to considering Mr. Park as a godlike figure and trying to communicate with him via flickering light switches and Morse code. It's an astonishing turn of events that's handled with great skill by the director Bong Joon-ho. The creeping dread of the subtly off-kilter performance by that former housekeeper outside in the rain waiting to be let in, the rising action of the manic rush to hide everything before the Parks arrive home, it's an instant classic sequence of cinema. Throughout this latter part of the film, I couldn't help but think of it as kind of Hitchcockian. Bong is a big Hitchcock fan. He said so in the BAFTA Screenwriters Lecture, which I was lucky enough to attend and which you can see on their YouTube channel. The film's replete with foreshadowing, it has loads of callbacks, and there's a great sense of humour that's quite dry and character-driven. Then, in its second half, it takes a massive turn and becomes a suspense thriller, driven by these stunning visual set pieces. And suddenly what seemed funny isn't funny at all. That's just like Psycho or The Birds. What also happens in this latter half is that the political themes come to a fore in an intense way. That man who lives in the basement has been driven mad by poverty. He's forced to hide from mounting debts and loan sharks, and it transpires that his main source of difficulty was the closing of his shop, implied to be where Ki-taek worked years before. So they're both in similar situations, and that ultimately leads to Ki-taek taking his place after killing Mr. Park. Both men are blind to what's causing their problems, though. The basement guy literally thinks of Mr. Park as a god, a kind of benevolent father. Ki-taek, on the other hand, says that Parks are nice, although, as his wife points out, it's not that hard to be nice if you're rich. He seems to be of the opinion that being poor is just because he hasn't worked hard enough yet. That if they can all get jobs, then they can work their way out of poverty. He certainly hopes for that for his kids. As the latter half develops, Ki-taek twists into anger as he overhears what the Parks really think of him. It's well communicated through this recurring theme of his semi-basement smell, a problem that runs throughout the movie from its very first scene, if you remember, with the pizza boxes. He gets his own back in a way, but he's doomed to live underground as a result, just like the crazy basement guy. The ending gives pause for thought, though. Ki-woo interprets his father's Morse code message, and we see a future where he's earned enough to buy the house and free his dad. I think that's easy to interpret as yet another aspirational story, where he works hard and finds freedom for his parents, which seems like almost a refutation of the rich-poor divide is entrenched themes of the rest of the film. But then again, it isn't the last moment of the movie. The last shot shows Ki-woo writing his letter explaining this plan, and as his dad says earlier in the film, life cannot be planned. That vision of freeing his dad is just that, a vision, an imagined moment. The reality is far from that hopeful future. That's it from me, but I know there's a lot to discuss about this movie in the comments, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. Stuff I'd love to discuss includes the significance of Native American imagery in the film, which really struck me, but I couldn't quite work out what that was there for. Your favourite moments in the movie, and of course your interpretation of the ending of the film and its themes. Have a good one. Bye for now.